Our problem-solving technique this week is called matrix logic, and here's our first example on our introductory problem. Two men, Jack and Mike, and two women, Adele and Edna, each like a different type of music. One of them likes jazz. Their last names are Mullen, Hardaway, Richmond, and Higgins. And then from the following clues, we need to find each person's full name and favorite type of music. Hardaway hates country western music. The classical music lover said she'd teach Higgins to play the piano. Adele and Richmond knew the country western fan in high school. Jack and the man who likes rock music work in the same building, and Richmond and Higgins are on the same bowling team. There are no men on the team. So this is a pretty wacky kind of problem, and it's pretty hard to solve just by writing words. It's pretty hard to solve any other way than this specialized technique called matrix logic. It can be done, but it's not much fun. And the way that works is you create a matrix something like this, an array something like this, where you cross-reference first names with the last names, the first names with the kinds of music, the last names with the kind of music. We don't need anything over here. And we'll use this matrix to keep track of the clues and the deductions we make from these clues. So the first clue is Hardaway hates country western music. So Hardaway is not a country fan, so we'll put a big X there. Hardaway, country don't go together. The classical music lover said she'd teach Higgins to play the piano. So that tells us a couple things. First of all, the classical music lover is a woman, and so we'll, assuming gender usual names, we'll assume that that means that Jack and Mike are not the classical music lovers. So the classical music lover can't be Jack or Mike, so we X those out. The classical music lover is also not Higgins, because she said she'd teach Higgins to play the piano. So the classical music lover is not Higgins. We can X that out. And that's about all we're going to get from that one for now. Then it tells us that Adele and Richmond knew the country western fan in high school. So that tells us quite a lot. It tells us that Adele is not Richmond. So Adele is not Richmond. And it tells us that Adele is not the country western fan. And it also tells us that Richmond is not the country western fan. Adele and Richmond both knew the country western fan in high school. So that gives us all of those. And then Jack and the man who likes rock music work in the same office building. So that means that Jack is not the person who likes rock music, but it also says the man who likes rock music. So that means the person who likes rock music must be Mike. So we'll put an exclamation point there to indicate that we found one. Mike is the rock music lover. And that means we can X out Mike and country, and Mike and jazz, and Adele and rock, and Edna and rock. So the first four clues give us this, and it doesn't look like we're going to have much to go on, and only one clue left, but watch what happens. Richmond and Higgins are on the same bowling team, and there are no men on the team. So that means Jack and Mike are not Richmond, and they're not Higgins. Richmond and Higgins are on the same bowling team. There are no men on the team. So Adele and Edna must be Richmond and Higgins. So Adele is not Mullen, Adele is not Hardaway, Edna is not Mullen, Edna is not Hardaway. And now we see that the only person left for Higgins, or the only person left that Adele could be, is Higgins, because we already know she's not Richmond. So that means Adele is Adele Higgins, and Edna is not Edna Higgins. So Edna must be Edna Richmond. Oops. Now let's go back to number 2. The classical music lover said she'd teach Higgins to play the piano. Well, that means the classical music lover is not Higgins, but Adele is Higgins, so Adele is not the classical music lover. But that means Adele must be the only thing left, which is jazz for her. So we can X out jazz for the other two. The classical music lover said she'd teach Higgins to play the piano. So the classical music lover is a woman, and the only woman left then would be Edna. So Edna Richmond must be the classical music lover. And then that leaves Jack to like the country music. Okay, closing in. Now what about the last names for Jack and Mike? Well, Hardaway hates country music, but Jack likes country music, so Jack is not Hardaway. Next, set that out, so Jack must be Jack Mullen. So Mike is not Mullen, meaning Mike must be Hardaway. And we didn't fill in all of these as much as we could have because we didn't need to. We've got it now. So looking at a completed matrix, Jack Mullen, country, Mike Hardaway, rock, Adele Higgins, jazz, and Edna Richmond, classical. And we're done. Now, anyone can make a mistake in any math problem. So now that we've got our answers, we could easily check them. Hardaway hates country western music. Well, Hardaway's a rock fan, so no problem there. Classical music lover, that is Edna Richmond, said she'd teach Higgins to play the piano. Well, there it is. Our classical music lover is a woman who's not Higgins. And so we could read through each of these clues, compare them to what we have down here, and make sure that there aren't any contradictions. Now, this is a very special technique for works almost only for these kinds of problems, which is a little wacky and wild, but we'll talk in class why this is a useful technique to understand anyway. So I hope this makes sense.